In a stunning live television moment, Melania Trump collapsed to the floor in tears, leaving the audience in complete silence. Her unexpected emotional outburst has sparked endless speculation. Was it a deeply personal revelation? An emotional confession? Or something even more shocking? Stay tuned as we uncover the truth behind this unforgettable moment that has everyone talking. The stage lights glimmered off the polished floor as the cameras rolled. Millions of eyes were glued to their screens, watching the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump, seated gracefully beside her husband, President Donald Trump. It was supposed to be a routine interview, another chance to set the record straight, to defend the truth. Then, without warning, it happened. Melania's lips quivered, her fingers gripped the armrest of the chair, and a single tear escaped her eye, rolling down her perfectly sculpted cheek. The room fell silent. Then, like a dam breaking, she collapsed forward, her hands covering her face as sobs shook her body. The live audience froze. The news anchor, mid-sentence, stared in shock. Even President Trump, known for his composure, turned sharply toward her, concern flashing in his eyes. The cameras kept rolling, and the entire world watched. Social media exploded within seconds. Headlines blared. Melania Trump's shocking breakdown. First Lady crumbles on live television. But no one knew the truth. No one knew the pain behind those tears. And in the days to come, the world would finally understand. The cameras cut to a sudden break. Secret Service agents rushed to Melania's side, whispering urgent words she barely heard. Her body trembled, her heart raced. Donald placed a firm hand on her back. "Melania, talk to me," he said, his voice unusually soft. She raised her head, her eyes glistening. I can't do this anymore," she whispered. Trump's face hardened. He had known this day might come, but he had prayed that she was strong enough to endure. For years, Melania had stood beside him through every attack, every false headline, every cruel lie. She had smiled for the cameras, carried herself with dignity, and held her head high, even when the world tried to break her. But today, the burden had become too heavy. The forces against them weren't just political enemies, they were in the media, in the government, even within her own family. The people who should have protected her, supported her, had turned against her. "They hate me, Donald," she choked out. "Not because I've done wrong, but because I stand for good." His jaw tightened. "And we will never back down." She nodded, but the pain was still there. The battle wasn't over, not even close. That night, Melania sat in the White House's private quarters, staring at the soft glow of Washington, D.C. through the window. Her mind raced. A phone buzzed on the table. She hesitated before picking it up. The name on the screen made her chest tighten. Ivanka, her own stepdaughter. With a deep breath, she answered, "Hello." There was a long silence on the other end before Ivanka finally spoke. "Melania, what was that today?" Her tone was cautious. Melania swallowed. "The truth," Ivanka exhaled. "You can't let them see you weak. You know they're going to use this against us." Weak. That word stung. It wasn't weakness that had broken her, it was years of being attacked, betrayed, and made to feel like she didn't belong, even by those closest to her. Melania's voice was calm but firm. "Ivanka, I am not weak. I am human. And I will not pretend anymore." A pause, then a quiet sigh. "Just be careful." Click. Melania closed her eyes, gripping the phone tightly. Even within her own home, she was alone in this fight. But she would not give up. Not now, not ever. Melania sat in her room, her hands trembling as she reached for a small box hidden inside her bedside drawer. It was an old wooden box, its edges slightly worn from years of handling. Inside were letters she had never shown anyone. She picked one up, her eyes scanning the words she had memorized by heart. "You will never belong. You were never meant to be First Lady. We will make sure you suffer until you leave." The threats had started the moment Donald announced his second run for office. At first, they had come from strangers' anonymous messages, vicious articles, fabricated lies in the media. But then, the betrayal became personal. Some of these letters had come from people she once called family, people she had trusted. Melania swallowed hard, a tear rolling down her cheek. They wanted to break her. They wanted her to leave, but they didn't know her strength. She clenched the letter in her hand and whispered, "I will not back down." At that moment, a knock came at her door. "Madam First Lady," a voice called. "There's something you need to see." Melania walked into the private study, her heels clicking against the marble floor. The television was already on, and the image on the screen made her stomach drop. A well-known news anchor smirked as she spoke. "Is Melania Trump mentally unstable? Sources claim she has been struggling emotionally, and last night's breakdown proves it." Melania's breath hitched. Another commentator added, "Her collapse on live television, was it a sign that she's cracking under the pressure of defending Trump?" The room spun. They were twisting her pain into a lie. She felt Donald's presence behind her before she even turned. His jaw was tight, his arms crossed. "They want to destroy you, Melania," he said, his voice low. "They want to make you the weak one so they can weaken me." Melania clenched her fists. "I will never let them." Donald nodded, his eyes fierce. "Then we fight back." But as the words left his mouth, Melania's phone buzzed with a text that made her knees buckle. "We warned you. Leave now, or we will ruin everything you love." Her hands trembled. The attacks weren't just words anymore, this was personal. Melania gripped her phone, her pulse racing. She knew exactly who had sent the message, a name she hadn't spoken in months. A family member she had once trusted. Someone who had turned against her when she refused to betray Donald. She dialed the number. It rang and rang until finally, a familiar voice answered. "Melania." She took a deep breath. "Why are you doing this?" A pause, then a cold chuckle. "Because you made your choice. You stood by him, and now you will suffer the consequences." Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Family does not do this," she whispered. "You stopped being family the moment you chose the truth over us," the voice replied. Click. The line went dead. Melania exhaled shakily. The battle wasn't just with the media. It wasn't just with the world. The betrayal ran deep, deep within her own blood. She turned to face Donald, her voice steady but broken. "They won't stop until I'm destroyed." Donald met her gaze, his expression fierce. "Then we make sure they fail." The news channels played the footage over and over again. Melania Trump, America's First Lady, breaking down in uncontrollable tears on live television. Commentators speculated endlessly. Some called it a moment of vulnerability, others a sign of hidden struggles. But those who opposed her, those who hated the truth, twisted it into something ugly. Was this staged? Is Melania Trump hiding something? Is this a sign of cracks in her marriage? The words cut deep. Melania had spent years enduring attacks from the media, but this was different. They weren't just questioning her, they were trying to destroy her. In the White House, she sat with her head in her hands, listening to the endless noise from the television. "Turn it off," Donald said sharply, entering the room. "You don't need to hear that garbage." Melania shook her head. "They will not stop, Donald. No matter what I do." He exhaled. "They attack you because they're afraid. Afraid of the truth, afraid of goodness." Melania lifted her head, her eyes filled with determination. "Then I will never let them win." The next morning, Melania sat at her desk, sifting through a pile of letters. Most were the usual messages from supporters, invitations, and official documents. But one letter caught her attention, a return address, no markings. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "You will never belong here. We will make sure you are erased. You should have stayed silent." Chills ran down her spine. She had received hate mail before, but this felt different. This felt like a warning. She looked around, making sure she was alone. Slowly, she folded the letter, pressing it close to her chest. She had always known that standing beside Donald meant making enemies, but now it felt more personal. A knock on the door startled her. It was her assistant, her face filled with concern. "Ma'am, you need to see this." Melania followed her down the hall, her heart pounding. As she entered the Oval Office, her breath caught. Spread across the president's desk were dozens of similar letters, each one filled with hatred, each one threatening her, her family, her life. Melania's vision blurred. She was under attack. Donald stood in front of the letters, his face unreadable. "They want to break you," he said. "They want you to back down." Melania swallowed hard. "I won't." But the fear was real. This wasn't just about insults or rumors anymore. This was something darker. Then, something even worse happened. One of the letters had a familiar signature, her own brother's name. Her breath caught. She read the words over and over again, not believing them. "You are a disgrace to this family. You are standing on the wrong side of history."